Started. Good morning, and I appreciate everyone joining us. I realize that the time of day and the opportunity for you to be doing a number of things is great, and we are glad to have you here with us today. In today's enterprise, we are faced with a number of challenges, and one of the top challenges is motivating and retaining our talent. This challenge increases when we refer to hourly employees who perform job functions that are what I refer to as deskless. These are people who don't have a corporate email account. They don't come in and log into a desktop or a computer of any kind. And our ability to communicate with them is somewhat limited. They don't have direct ties to corporate information. They don't have that email account that we can send to. They do sometimes have the ability to get to a shared computer and maybe look at the internet, but they don't have that desk and that ability for us to communicate with them regularly. And the question becomes, how do I motivate, inform, and train these employees? Further aggravating this challenge is the cultural expectation that communication is going to be video-centric. We're all familiar with YouTube and all of the many things on the web today that allow us to do video communication. And retailers and enterprises with large distributed deskless workforces are looking for a way to communicate, motivate, and retain the talent that they've worked so hard to attract. Now, the reason these employees are so critical to our success, as Ram Charan says in many of his books and articles, businesses don't create value, people do. And just like the old adage says, people don't buy from a business, they buy from people. So these people are so critical to our success, and our ability to communicate with them and train them is absolutely paramount. Now, one of the costs that we want to focus on, and one of the ROI points that we'll talk about throughout this presentation, is the cost of employee turnover. In 2015, I participated with some colleagues in a study of what it takes to replace an hourly store associate. We stopped and we looked at all of the different aspects: exit interview, advertising, interviewing, background checks, and just a wide range of things. And candidly, after this presentation, if someone would like to discuss with me some of those aspects, I'd be happy to continue that conversation, because our dialogue and our effort to document and study this process is an ongoing and dynamic process. But what we found is that it costs between $3,000 and $4,000 to replace a typical hourly entry-level employee or store associate, someone making $10 to $15 an hour. As a rule of thumb, what we found in our research was that it is about 15% of their annualized salary. Now, they may be part-time and they may be three-quarter time, but if you look at their annualized salary, it's going to cost you about 15%. That means that if I have a retail chain, small, medium-sized retail chain that has about 10,000 store associates, it could be costing me hundreds of thousands of dollars into the millions of dollars for employee turnover, because in the retail space, we know there's about a 50% turnover in that job category. But if I can reduce that turnover, if I can reduce that churn by just 2%, I have the potential of saving my company as much as $300,000 a year. How do we do this? How do we reduce that turnover and reduce that churn in our employee base? Well, I believe that you do that through company culture. Company culture is a wide-ranging set of behaviors. It's a wide-ranging set of activities that will build and establish a relationship with the employee. Creating culture is not simple. Many organizations rely on the fact that people need an income, they need benefits, and candidly that they'll feel a sense of duty to the company that provides these items. But this is not the case, and even when it is the case, it's creating an imbalanced culture. In addition to income and benefits, we want employees who have pride in their job, who get enjoyment from what they do, and who have a shared vision of how great our company can be. We want to create engagement with our distributed workforce. Engagement. We've heard that term a lot lately. It's the emotional commitment that an individual has to the organization and its objectives. There are several studies that have shown when employees are engaged, there is a culture of success. The organization will have higher profits, greater performance, happier customers, and more. Again, going back to what we said earlier, businesses don't create value, people do. People don't buy from a business, they buy from people. And if the employee that they are interacting with is knowledgeable, excited, happy, and capable, and confident, they're going to come back and you're going to have great loyalty in your customer base as well. The reason is quite simple. If an employee is engaged, they're going to go the extra mile to make sure that the customer is happy, to talk through why I'm returning this item and potentially sell me a replacement item or something that meets my needs better. Or candidly, on the front end of the sale, they're going to talk to me about what it is that I'm looking for, what it is that I'm trying to do, and make sure that I purchase the correct product or set of products the first time. Building engagement requires 3 cornerstone activities. Kevin Kruse identified these clearly in his book he calls We, How to Increase Performance and Profits Through Full Engagement. Kevin is a great guy, he's a great author, and he's what I consider one of the leading experts on employee engagement. But he has identified 3 activities that are critical to creating employee engagement: communication, recognition, and development. And when an organization focuses on these activities, there will be employee engagement and the culture will be successful. And we're here today to talk about a way to meet that development aspect. What is distance learning? Enterprise distance learning came about in response to decreasing travel budgets and limited subject matter experts and resources. Economics required that these trainers spend less time on the road, and the distance learning movement in the enterprise space was born. Many people think of distance learning simply as a virtual classroom enabled by webcasting and video technologies, but this is actually only part of distance learning. Distance learning is a way of delivering knowledge and training to distributed workforces that are physically separated from the various subject matter experts. The virtual classroom must be supported by a combination of on-demand coursework, field-based activities, and assignments that try to develop the skills that we're teaching the learners, the employees, our staff. And all learning is enhanced by the use of mentors. This combination of instructional styles is sometimes referred to as blended learning. But blended learning and distance learning, these are things that roll up and allow us to create that culture and to open up a culture of success and to strengthen the engagement of our employees. One of the key benefits of the transition to distance learning, and that transition may be from no training, it may be from traveling trainers, it may be from a concept of sending information to the store manager who is then responsible for repeating it. One of the key benefits moving to distance learning is the consistency of the message. When any of you that have ever experienced the old telephone game where we sat in a circle, whether there was 5 of us or 55 of us, we started a message whispered from person 1 to person 2, around the circle it goes. By the time it gets back to the originator, the message usually was not even recognizable. When there's a virtual classroom, the engineers who built the product can talk with the sales teams without having to travel for multiple days. You know, in the mid-1990s, the automotive industry took a leadership role in distance learning and built robust virtual learning universities for their workforces. They put subject matter experts on camera in an actual garage with the vehicle in front of them to speak directly to the employees at the dealerships. They included interactivity using proprietary devices. They set up training that allowed the presenter to ask multiple choice questions, tracking the responses down to the individual, and they introduced the ability for students to ask questions back to the presenters during the session. They were using a combination of audio bridges and phone lines and different things. And as you see in the picture on screen right now, it was an effective way to get information, but we have matured. The distance learning industry has advanced significantly, and enterprise learning is now a very robust and open tool that utilizes the global internet, common devices, and web browsers, and it opens the door to a range of training and learning programs. Interactivity has also moved forward, recognizing the need for students to interact not only with the instructor but also with each other. Distance learning tools now provide chat functionality and chat room functions to open the door for greater learning and development. This interactivity can be delivered using standard web browsers on a range of devices, and it even allows students to share a device during their learning session. Again, depending on the organization, depending on the training, depending on the specific course today. I may have 3 individuals in a training room. I may have 12 individuals in a training room. I may have no training room at all, and I simply need one of my associates to step off of the floor and take and participate in this training so that we can continue to advance our message. Another interaction point is two-way audio. In some organizations, it's simpler and more appropriate for the students to ask their question using an audio bridge. Providing a way for the student to request the microphone or request the floor and allowing the instructor to control who and when is a powerful component and something that we want to make sure we provide and make available to our students. During training sessions, it's advantageous for the presenter to ask questions and see immediate results. Sometimes we call these polls or surveys, and it lets the presenter know if the audience is understanding the material and whether or not they need to give some additional feedback on certain concepts. There's the ability for the audience members to ask questions. If the goal is to offer compliance training, there will be a need for a tracking mechanism that allows proof of performance based on the individual login. Did they get questions 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 correct? Did they get questions 3 and 4 wrong, but 1, 2, and 5 correct? All of that goes into the type of training that you're doing, but it should be things that you can do so that you can go back and review what's working and what's not working on a course-by-course basis and a student-by-student basis. You know, in today's world, we are seeing an increasing use of town hall meetings. These are awesome ways to communicate and at times offer training. Distance learning technologies can be utilized in a town hall if the organization wishes to build interactivity and has the ability to carry the town hall as a broadcast to remote sites. Imagine the CEO can go into a large room. There may be some local personnel that join him there or her there. Then we broadcast that. And whether you're talking about the people who are in the room themselves or the folks that are watching it from a distant location, if you have your distance learning tool enabled, they can do polls and surveys and give feedback real time to the CEO or to the presenter. So it's a tremendous way to communicate and deliver. You know, we're using WebEx today, and as a side note, some companies do think that they can utilize web meeting tools like WebEx and GoToMeeting to create distance learning programs. I would say that there is a distinction. And that distinction is that these web meeting tools are designed for interactive meetings. Where a group of 5 to 20 people want to share ideas, collaborate on documents, maybe discuss programs, they don't lend themselves well to instructional situations where there's one instructor and many learners, and the learners need to interact in a classroom style. Even when using the webinar versions of these tools, they still lack some of the core capabilities, not the least of which is the user tracking and the ability to understand who is learning and what they're learning as we go through. Again, great tools. I use them routinely to communicate with people, but I would tell you for a distance learning program, you want to look a little further than those online meeting tools. So let's talk about how we get started. Let's just say, okay, I'm convinced that I need to have a distance learning program in my organization. How do I start? How do I path my way from where we are today to where we want to be. You'll always have budget considerations as you start this process, and it is possible to hold audio-only sessions. For some organizations, based on their budget and business requirements, it may dictate that this is the primary course of action. But listening alone will not have the impact. There is an old adage that says a picture is worth 1,000 words. The 21st century version adds, and a video is worth 1,000,000. As you begin offering video for corporate messaging and training, you can create a video-on-demand solution. Set up a way for employees to search topics and watch subject matter experts speaking about the topic, providing a mechanism for the viewers to rate the content so that the value to the organization can be tracked and measured. Again, think about YouTube. If you watch a YouTube video, you have the ability to comment. You have the ability to rate that video. Now turn that internally. Okay, I'm not doing anything live yet. I am simply providing an interface for my students to go in and to watch videos that we have produced. And then when they're done watching those videos, they can give me a 1 to 5 star rating. What does that do for me? That allows my content people to look and say, this video is on a very important topic, but we're getting low ratings. Why? And we'll talk about analytics in a minute, but go in and look. Are people watching the video to the end? Are people dropping out after the first minute or two? Is the content too long? Are we not presenting it clearly? But we get a chance to look at that, and that rating and some of those comments will give us fast and early indicators as we look at what we're trying to do. When I'm evaluating a video-on-demand solution, I like to ask whether the existing wide area network can accommodate the volume of traffic that may be generated. If the answer is yes, we can support a video-on-demand solution, then I would recommend or I would advise the customer to look at a software-as-a-service solution. A hosted SaaS offering greatly reduces the upfront investment and will allow the organization to evaluate the value of communication before making larger investments. Now, what are some of the things that I look at in order to make that determination? Well, if I'm looking at a store that has 50 or 80 employees and I am considering having any 5 to 10 of them off floor taking training during a particular time of day, I need to look at what we refer to as the last mile of the wide area network. Am I going to impact business? In other words, the ability for the store to conduct transactions, credit cards, and so forth by having 10 or 12 people sitting at computers doing a software-as-a-service video viewing and training? If the answer is yes, then I think what we need to do is look at a solution that allows us to put the content inside the store so that I can log in, take my training, but stay localized rather than traversing the overall wide area network. If I'm in a situation where my store typically only has 1, 2, 3 employees on at a time, and candidly, one of them's really going to just take a tablet and step over here to the side and go through some short spurt courses, setting it down and coming back to help customers if they become busy, then I'm looking at one person, and really that software as a service, that hosted solution is probably the best way to go. All right, as the organization grows, the use of video, there will come a time when it's desirable to create live video events. The ability to view this live broadcast gives you the ability to have direct contact and have an immediate impact on your viewers, on your learners, on your staff. Now, you have to ask yourself, does the ability to view the live broadcast meet our corporate goals? And is there a real business benefit to having the audience see and hear the event live? If the answer is yes, then you're going to take that next step. And again, just quickly reviewing, we started out with the idea that, hey, maybe we have to just start with an audio bridge. I don't think that's optimal, but hey, it's certainly something to take a look at. But really, a good first step is to say, I'm going to create a video-on-demand solution. Then I'm going to add in potentially the option to go live. So we can kind of take steps as we move up the ladder. We don't have to jump in at the deep end of the pool when we get started. Now, when the time arrives and the business is ready to add interactivity, okay, we talked about video on demand and devices and things, a computer, a tablet, whatever, so that I can log in and I can consume that. But when I get to where I want to do live and I want to have interactivity, decide what level of interaction is needed to accomplish your business goals. Does your instructor need to do polls and surveys along the way? I believe it is an excellent way to enhance and improve the quality of each individual session, and the cost, honestly, is not great. If I'm going to an interactive solution, I don't believe that adding if I'm going to a video live training solution, adding that interactivity is not a huge step in cost. But ask yourself, what level do we need? Do the distributed employees need to see the presenter? What if I had an audio bridge for them to listen, but I had an interactive item on their tablet, their laptop, or some device in front of them that let them ask the questions back to the instructor or amongst themselves? Does that get the job done for me? And do the presenters need to ask questions of the audience, and is tracking the specific results necessary? In other words, do I want to take a poll or a survey simply to see if the audience is paying attention and grasping the concepts, or is this a compliance course and I need to know that Mary, Tom, Dave, Sue, and Bill all answered the question, answered it correctly, and I want to know exactly what they answered. So again, make sure you've accounted for a variety of devices, operating systems, and the tools that will be used to participate. Seek a device agnostic, OS agnostic, and browser-centric solution. Again, in today's world, there's a lot of apps and tools that are browser-based, but they require tons of plugins and things. And in a typical large corporate environment, it's not simple to say, oh, yeah, we just want to add this into the browser at the computers around the stores. Make sure that as you look at solutions, you ask your IT partners and you talk through what it's going to take to enable devices to participate. And always remember, there's going to be mobile employees. They may not be in a company location, but they want to participate. Is it a regional leader? Is it a district leader? Is it someone who is going to participate in this, but they're typically on the road, in a hotel, in their car? Can we handle that? How can we handle that? Do we have the ability to bring them in? And then honestly, at some point in the future, you're going to find yourself wanting to have that remote or mobile employee even participate as a subject matter expert. So ask yourself, in your planning process, you don't have to be able to do that day one, but can you grow to that point with what you're looking at? Before we wrap up, let's talk just briefly about analytics and reporting. It's been said, if you want to improve something, measure it. And if you want to speed up the improvement, measure it and report on it. There are a number of important measures when working with interactive distance learning. Certainly you want to keep track of who's taken what courses and how they've done on those. But what about the chat transcripts from a live interactive session? Wouldn't it be nice to go back and see the questions that were asked of the instructor or amongst the students in the chat room, so that you can look at whether or not you need to modify the way the course is delivered or improve certain points of that? You also want to look at both video on demand and live when people came in and exited. It's important to understand if there is a point in the presentation, whether it's recorded or live, that large groups of people are exiting, you need to ask yourself, what is it about that presentation that had them going for the door? Was it simply that we got to the Q&A part and people were exiting? Okay, that's fine. Did we shift to a topic that a large portion of our audience doesn't care about? Or have we been delivering it in a way where they're just simply no longer interested in participating? You need to understand that and look at that. You also want to know how much time is being spent on training and learning. Grouping that amount of time by job role, by store, by region, and then summing it all the way up. Because again, when you sit down and want to justify the training and learning programs, when you want to establish your ROI, you want to understand, hey, our average employee spent somewhere in the neighborhood of 4 hours a month, 3 hours a week, 10 hours a quarter, whatever it may be, in training, and those that did, we saw these kind of marked improvements and so forth. And remember, when we're talking about training and learning, this means that we want to track down to the actual individual and also down to the course, whether we're tracking for internal career pathing or for compliance reporting. The solution needs to have tracking that is granular enough on both the content and the user side. There's a number of ways you can measure ROI on distance learning. You can compare the reduction in travel costs, the headcount, the use of existing headcount or potentially reduction of headcount to the cost against the cost of implementing the hardware and software. This is what many of our early adopting customers did some years ago. One in specific chatted with us, and what they found was very impressive. They reported a 2x ROI in the first year against the cost of implementing the studio and the cameras and the things that they did. And that was exciting. We were very, very thrilled to see that in that first year they not only saw a return of the money they spent, but actually a 2x ROI, and that was great. But they had a very big upfront expense, and there you go. How did it handle in the out years? Well, in the next 2 to 4 years, they saw even higher returns because they didn't have that large upfront capital expenditure. And they were telling us they saw anywhere from 3 to 4 times the return. Now, the CFO appreciated that calculation. The ROI that I believe is more important is in the last statement of what's on the screen there. And that's where leadership begins to see the value of this development tool and increases their demand to use the tool to communicate with and talk to the distributed workforce. And let me give you an example. You know, I used to say 4 or 5 years ago when I would talk to clients and I would work with them on ideas and plans, I said, listen, once you put this in place, the executive ego is going to bring them to the studio. And it was true. Executives like the idea of being on television. They like to be on this private, business TV channel, and they had the ability to communicate. But what we see today, what we have seen really start to come alive since late 14 going into last year, and I believe it really has a lot to do with this whole employee engagement mentality and concept that's sweeping through executive leadership right now. It's, if I, as a leader, want to lead, I need to talk to the troops. I need to talk to the feet that are on the ground, that are talking to the customers that I so desperately want to build loyalty with. I want to build loyalty with my employees, and I want them to help me build loyalty with my customers. And so savvy executives, 21st century, forward-thinking executives are looking for ways that they can get in front of the audiences. And really, some of them are starting out with just recorded video content. Record it in the morning, get it out there, and have it available for the employees to understand this month's focus, this week's focus. And I'm seeing it not only going to the broadest of audiences, but also, hey, I've got the weekly regional vice president weekly meeting to his or her store managers, and it's just for the store managers. But it's something that's happening every week. It's something for them to get focused. You'll find certain executives are very comfortable in a live environment. Some executives are more comfortable knowing that it's going to be recorded, and if they slip up and they want to restate something, or if they and ah and pause, they're far, far more comfortable knowing that there's an edit suite between them and the final product. One last example that I like to share, and it's a little bit on the fear side of things, but it makes a valid point. In today's world, when retailers come up, they wake up in the morning and Good Morning America is reporting that there was a credit card breach in their organization overnight or over the weekend or something. Executives have the opportunity with this type of infrastructure to get with their senior leadership team decide what their response is, what is happening, what are we doing, what do we want our customers to know. And while they may go to the press and they may go start talking, to the media to get their word out, if they have this type of infrastructure in place, they can go into the office, go into the studio, record this message, distribute it out to the stores, and instruct the store managers that before any of our teams go on the floor, they need to watch this 3-minute video from the senior leadership team, which says, yes, we did. This is what we've done. We're very comfortable. We know that we're fixing these things, and your data is safe with us going forward. So that when the first customer of the day, who also watched Good Morning America, says to the cashier, is my data safe with your company? The cashier doesn't go, I don't know. The cashier says, yes, it is. I heard this morning what we're doing, and these are some of the things that we're making available and taking care of to protect your data. So again, not that everything has to be around a bad event, but it gives you the ability to train long-term, short-term, and in the crisis, how you want your employees to handle things. So as I summarize, all of these functions are available today, and solutions can be designed that allow your organization to start with a simple SaaS offering and grow into the broader features and capabilities. But there is an important discussion that you should have, and that's around content. Remember, when you're considering training and learning, make sure that you're designing your content and your lesson plans with the virtual classroom in mind, and find ways to emulate the live in-person classroom as much as possible, to incorporate mentors, to incorporate field activities, to incorporate on-demand or self-paced content as well. This is what we refer to as blended learning. We talked about that at the outset, the use of multiple types of training materials and solutions to bring about a full curriculum. Distance learning is a great tool for delivering subject matter expertise into the field, but it should be paired with some of these other capabilities, and you want to have a solution and a system that lets you do all of that and lets you bring the student or the learner or the employee through the process in an organized way. As you prepare for distance learning, look for a service provider who can help you, and when evaluating service providers, of course, find one that has some networking, some video, and even some corporate training experience themselves. I sincerely hope that you found today's presentation helpful. And really, I hope that it has opened up questions in your mind and inspired some thinking about how your organization can benefit from the use of distance learning and interactive distance learning to build engagement and to create a culture of success. I invite you to continue this conversation. I say this at the end of all of my presentations. If you have some ideas or something that you'd like to explore and discuss with me, or that you would like to take issue with and challenge me on, I'm happy to do so. You can reach me on both Twitter and LinkedIn at Hughes Media VP or Mike Tippets. I appreciate everyone being here today. That wraps up the presentation that I have prepared. Curtis, do I have any questions or anything in from our audience?
Yes, there is a couple of questions here in the chat log, one of which is during your presentation you mentioned that the solution is delivered via a web browser. Will there also be an iOS and or Android apps to participate as well?
Excellent question. And the answer is yes. Again, if you're looking at a solution or you're evaluating a solution, and in the work that we do, we are absolutely creating iOS, Android, Windows, Mac versions. But what we have found over the last 2 years is the increasing ability to basically write what I would consider a web browser-based application, but in order to gain some of the advantages of those operating systems and devices, we wrap it up into an actual OS-specific application. But we try, here at Hughes, we try very hard to maintain that browser-centric piece first, so that, candidly and almost selfishly, that limits the amount of recoding and reworking that we need to do, but we don't ever want to leave someone who's using a particular device and that gives us some benefit behind because we didn't take advantage of that particular device.
Perfect, thanks. There's another question we have about content delivery and content creation. They want to know They understand that Hughes is obviously a provider of distance learning technologies, but they would like to know from a content creation standpoint, do we create the content, or is it best to go through a certain provider, or is there templates that we need to use, or perhaps even for SCORM modules? What's the best path moving forward on that?
Excellent question, and I'm going to take that in a couple of pieces. First of all, in our world, we work to be compatible with content that is created in just about any solution or any source. Our solutions, we always try to follow SCORM where possible, AICC, so that our customers can use tools, and there are several out there, Captivate, Articulate, things like that, that create excellent, they give you the ability to create excellent courses, on-demand, self-paced training. We don't at Hughes get into the business directly of creating content. We're not subject matter experts when it comes to selling home improvement or clothing and things like that. But what we did do in response to a significant level of request from our customers was we added the ability in our particular product offering for the customer to shoot a video and then upload that into our system and inject questions along the way. What we found was some customers have a very advanced learning development organization. They go and they use advanced tools like the ones that I have mentioned, and they create excellent courses, self-paced courses. But as we broadened out to an increasing customer base and people who were really kind of jumping in at the beginning, they wanted that, but they didn't have the staff, and they didn't have the contracting base or anything to get that accomplished. But they knew what they wanted to do. They shot this video, and they simply wanted to be able to ask questions along the way, both to judge comprehension, but also in some cases to do compliance. So we added that ability and removed the need to go off to a separate editing tool and inject those questions. So what that does for you is it allows you to just shoot a video, and some of our customers, honestly, they're shooting the video with their iPhone and their iPad and their Android phones, and then simply uploading that, and then they go in and they say at minute 2:30, minute 2:34 seconds, stop and ask these 1, 2, 3, 4, however many questions. The nice thing about this is if after a period of time, either you discover there's a reason to update it, there's a mistake, or you say, you know what, processes and activities have changed, so I need to reshoot that video. You can reshoot the video, upload it into the system to replace the existing one, and potentially just adjust where the questions fall. Instead of at 2:34, it needs to fall at 3:03. But we give you that ability. So in that regard, I would say yes, we give you the ability to create content, but we don't produce a library, of how to wash your hands, how to handle angry customers, and that type of content. The last thing that I'll say about content is if you're asking yourself what formats and things should I use, if you are going to use some sort of a course creating tool, find one that is SCORM compliant. And that industry has recently started and I think they're finishing a kind of a significant move forward where the output of their solutions is no longer Flash-centric, but HTML-centric. For us, our solution, we don't care if it's Flash or HTML-centric as long as it's SCORM compliant for that type of information, which gives us an excellent way to track down to specific questions. We can bookmark, we can understand when they came in, when they came out, and so forth. If we're talking about video, I want to put videos in, even if I do or don't add questions, I advise people just do MPEG-4. Just do a standard MPEG-4 video. That's fairly common out of all of your consumer-level devices and prosumer-level devices, so that you've got that. It's easy to work with. Our solutions, we've had a couple of customers who simply wanted to put documents, PDF documents up there, and they want to know that the individual has accessed that and by definition read it. So again, we support those kind of things. But that's what I'd say in answer to that question, Curtis.
Perfect. And one final question before we close out here is it came from one of our guests that said, we have a store network in place. You mentioned that this can be delivered over the cloud, but if we don't want to deliver that over the cloud, well, really long story short, the question is, what's the best path for setting this up, whether it's an in-store network, do we need a separate network, and so on and so forth.
Okay, that's an excellent question. And the first of all, the answer from a Hughes perspective is we can deliver it as a hosted SaaS offering, or we can deliver it as technology that you implement within your firewall. So it all exists within your network, and there is no going out to an external source. What I tell people from my experience, if you're doing something that, whether it's on demand or live and there's video, you're probably going to want to, you absolutely want to sit down with your IT partners and work through some ideas, but you're probably going to wind up at a minimum virtual LANing or VLANing a section of the network to work with this. That goes back to depending on what portion of the network and where you are, you want to make sure you don't disrupt the security clearances, the PCI compliance of your store networks. Some customers have come to us partly because of who we are as Hughes, being a managed network of all types provider, and they actually have us install a backup or tertiary network, depending on the type of business that they're in, and they run the training and learning functionality on that backup or third level network. And then, of course, when there's an urgent situation and they need to use the backup or third network, training and learning is either decreased or shut off for the period of time. So you don't have to go out and get a whole new network. You will want to sit down with your IT partners and discuss the best way to deliver this. And candidly, again, as a guy who's in the training and learning space and knows when you meet with IT, the discussions that you have to have, they may very well be trying to find the business justification for backup or tertiary networks to protect the business critical activities, and being able to deliver the training ROI as a result may help you get the justification to light up that second or third network.
Perfect. Well, that's the questions we have time for today. Again, Mike, we appreciate your time and your expertise. And just as a reminder, this meeting has been recorded. So if you would like a copy, obviously we can furnish that to you, but we also will be making it available on our website, which is unleash.hughesignage.com. Thank you again for your participation. And again, Mike, thank you. And we look forward to working with you all. Have a great day. Bye-bye.